Hi, back in session with Professor P. We're going to talk about marriage and the family today. Okay, marriage is customary in all societies. Not everybody gets married, but you all have the option culturally to do so. There's a variation in how we marry, who we marry, right? How many we marry. I know you guys don't like to hear that, but it is a universal cultural trait. All societies have the practice of marriage. What is marriage? It's broken down. It's a big definition. You'll see it in your book. Marriage is socially approved. It's sexual. It's economic. It's reciprocal. There's reciprocity involved. It's typically between two people, but can include more. All right, let's continue. You could actually be using your concept sheets, following along, printing them out from your Canvas shell, whatever. All right, we'll skip the rare types of marriage. Why is marriage universal? Marriage solves problems in all society. Let me give you the theories behind it. The very first theory is called the gender division of labor. That means that two people come together to share in labor. It solves the gender division of labor, right? That you're each going to perform different economic tasks within the marriage. Prolonged infant dependency theory, it's the next one. That's number 2. Prolonged infant dependency theory basically says this: children in our society stay with us a very long time. So we need the two people to come together for child rearing and food gathering and food getting, right? And how many of you still live at home? Prolonged infant dependency theory. A third one's called sexual competition. This is very interesting. Remember, you don't have to agree with all of them, but just think about them. So sexual competition basically says this: marriage can prevent competition of rivalry among males for females. And that's because females can have intercourse year-round. So they're trying to say it eliminates that sexual competition between males for females. The very last one is called the postpartum requirement theory. Postpartum requirement theory basically says this: because we have a high cesarean rate in today's society, a lot of women will stay in the hospital and the significant other will take the child home and start the rearing process because the woman is still healing in the hospital, right? It really is about mothers who can't move easily or travel after birth. That postpartum requirement there will kick in and the other spouse will begin to raise the child at home. Okay, those are the theories. How does one marry? How many of you have been to a wedding? All societies mark elaborate ceremony. It could be simple, it could be elaborate. You know, it's customary, formal, informal. How many of you have been to a wedding on a beach, in a house, in a church, in Vegas, at City Hall, right? Everybody marks marriage, and that's a fun aspect, right? So think about that. All right, marriage also has economic aspects. Every marriage has economic aspects. I mean, even for you guys attending a wedding, you bring a gift. That's an economic contribution to the marriage, okay? Let's start out with bride price, okay? Bride price is basically the groom gives to the bride or the bride's family. Many of you believe it's like buying off, right, a person. That's not really how it's seen within these societies. 44% of all societies globally do bride price. Basically, bride price happens where they practice horticulturism. It's where they lack social stratification. Women can contribute to primary subsistence as well. But bride price is common, typically where women do have a little bit lower status. So it becomes important to understand that. All right, the next one, bride service. Bride service is basically where the groom will work for the bride's family. All right, maybe before, during, or after the marriage. I always say we still have bride service and groom service today. But typically it's where it's egalitarian, the societies, and they're food collectors, so everybody's really helping out anyway. The next one is called exchange of females. Most of you do not like this one, but exchange of females happens where females have very high value. So they're very reared within these societies, okay? So 6% of societies do exchange of females, and basically when the groom gets married, for a period of time, a female relative, whether it's a sister, an aunt, a mother, has to actually provide some type of labor because of the loss of the bride. They're not slaves. This isn't, being an indentured servant. It's part of the cultural ideology where they say, okay, the groom took this bride away. Now we got to go and ease the strain by providing a service there, providing that exchange, okay? So it's really where women are primary subsisters and they contribute a lot to society. So their loss is going to be felt hard. All right, gift exchange is just that. We're not going to really go over that. Let's get to the dowry. The dowry is basically, historical concept of the dowry was where the bride's family gives to the bride. The dowry exists in many societies around the world, and the dowry is perfectly fine. In some areas of the world, they have what's called dowry death burning. It only exists in one area, and it's in India. But not even all of India practices this. People who are in parts of India that are upper class, women are valued, women get educated. This doesn't even happen. I have a lot of colleagues and friends who are from different parts of India, and they're like, we've never even heard of this. It doesn't exist everywhere, okay, in India. Basically, the dowry is where the bride's family gives to the bride. In India, it's swapped to where the bride's family gives to the groom. And the groom does these dowry death burnings where he kills the bride. He kills his bride in the kitchen. It's a fire. It's an electrical fire. Something happens. And these are called the bride burnings. And many of you have probably heard of them. Now, I want to let you guys know that this doesn't happen in all parts of India. Even you who are part of the Indian culture, it's a very beautiful culture, and there's lots of beautiful things there. But in all cultures, certain things happen. This has to be one of them. So let's say you're from Kenya, or you're from Ethiopia, or you're from Nigeria, Uganda, and you're doing the dowry. People have never heard of it. In India, they've never even heard of it. Parts of it. So the dowry death burnings really are a tragedy. And they even in 1973 they came up with what was called the Dowry Death Burning Prohibition Law. And so there's been a lot of laws and policies that have been instituted to try to change this. However, in the field of anthropology, we say unless you raise the status of women in a society, this isn't going to change. So we really have to think about this and understand it. And like I said, not everybody's practicing this in this part of the world, okay? A lot of people are practicing this just fine, and they don't have the dowry death burning. Women who get inheritance for their fathers, women who get educated, women who are part of the primary workforce, this really isn't happening, okay? So I just want you to understand that. We're going to skip indirect dowry, okay? Let's get to the incest taboo. Listen, people, the word taboo. It's incest taboo. It prohibits. It says you cannot have sexual intercourse with certain categories of your family and kin. There's certain theories to prohibit this sexual kind of intercourse, right? There's not really cultures today that practice incest, okay? Just so you guys understand that. So there's theories behind, if you look at your concept sheet, there's theories behind the incest taboo. One is called the childhood familiarity theory. This theory basically says that you're too familiar with people, so you have a sexual disinterest. I mean, even think about your siblings. You're like, oh my God, gross, because you're so familiar with them. Even people you might have been enculturated with that are fictive kin, that are like family, that you don't even have that ideology, right? It's called the childhood familiarity theory. You're so familiar, you have a sexual disinterest. A second one is Freud's psychoanalytical theory. Freud had to be involved. So basically what he says is this. A son is attracted, through the Oedipus complex, the son is attracted to the mother, right? But he's not going to act on those desires because of retaliation by the father. So you're just not going to do it, even though he's attracted. Freud believes that, early childhood development, if you look at children, they're attracted to that opposite sex parent, okay? The Oedipus complex basically states that. But he says you just don't act on these forbidden unconscious impulses, right? Because of the reaction by the other parent. The next theory is called family disruption theory. That came out of the school of Bronislaw Malinowski, father of British anthropology. And basically this says this. The family in and of itself could not function or wouldn't exist if we were all having intercourse with one another. So you just don't do it. It would disrupt the concept of the family's existence. So you just don't do it. All right. Number 4 is called the cooperation theory. Cooperation theory basically says this. We marry out of our family to increase our allies, to broaden our family. If we married in, we wouldn't have allies and we wouldn't increase the family. So this cooperation, it keeps the community going, it enhances our community, and that's why it's the cooperation theory. The last theory behind the incest taboo is inbreeding theory. Because people in the same family carry the same recessive genes, we could produce offspring with very harmful disorders and genetic disorders. So we want to prevent that. So we just don't have intercourse with family members because it's going to increase the likelihood, not necessarily have it, but increase genetic mutations, negative mutations. All right, let's move on. Who should one marry? So all societies have rules of who you should marry. In a lot of societies globally, arranged marriage is very valued. It's valued today in some societies. In a lot of societies, It's become real modern, so there's been negotiators, aunts or middlemen become involved, and you arrange a marriage with people that have similar religions, similar education, similar political views, similar social ideologies, right? Arranged marriages are actually effective, and a lot of people stay married within those arranged marriages as well. We have what's called love marriages, so we marry out of love. We're not looking for the exact match of a person, right? And we know in both marriages there could be rates of divorce. All right, let's get to exogamy and endogamy. Exogamy, think of exiting out, exogamy. That's a rule that basically says you marry outside of a factor of your community. So let's just say if I'm Catholic and I marry my husband who's Russian Orthodox, that's exogamous. Let's say I'm from Brentwood and I marry somebody from San Francisco, that's exogamous. Let's say, you are, Mormon and you marry Presbyterian, that's exogamous. You could have both going on. Endogamy means you marry something and someone in your community that has some similar factors. So if you're from San Francisco, you marry somebody from San Francisco, that's endogamous. If you're Catholic, you marry Catholic, that's endogamous. If you're Latino, you marry Latino, that's endogamous. So it's different factors saying you're either going to exit out or you're going to endogamy, where you're going to marry a factor within. All right, hope that was clear. Let's move to levirate and sororate. Levirate is a custom where a man will marry his dead brother's widow. Okay, this happens in certain parts of Siberia where the living is pretty harsh. It's really not about sexual intercourse. It's about keeping the status of the sister-in-law. So this is where a man is obligated to marry his brother's widow. Okay, sororate, think of a sorority. This is where a woman marries her deceased sister's husband for the same reasons, to help out with the rearing of the children and things like that. How many does one marry? In our society, we're supposed to be monogamous. And I'm going to define this. It's supposed to be one man, one woman, but now we know it could be one partner, one partner. However, we do serial monogamy, which means we marry, divorce, marry, divorce. Polygamy. Polygamy is one man, many women. There's two different kinds. Sororal polygamy is sisters marrying the same man. Non-sororal is not. They're non-sisters marrying the same man. We want to look at what are the pros and cons of this. Some of the advantages is this. People who marry within polygyny basically believe that they have a sisterhood. They can, division of labor. Imagine going to work and somebody's always here to take care of the kids. So there's a lot of advantages there. The disadvantage, a lot of the men say in these documentaries, are that they're having to support a lot of these children and the women. All right, polyandry, the rarest form of marriage, that is where you have one woman, many men. It's rare. Fraternal polyandry is where it's one woman marrying brothers. There's only one family that exists in Nepal today that actually do that. There's 3 brothers married to one woman, and she's at an advantage because she has 3 workers. Her children are going to be the only children. Biology is very unimportant, so it's either eldest father or father 1, middle father, younger father, very loving family. We interviewed them a lot in the field of anthropology. They say, what do you guys think about divorce? And they say, listen, if somebody's unhappy, they could leave. They can't take anything, but they could come back at any time. Very calm, sort of passive society. They say they really want to keep the resources in and the land in. They own a lot of land, but not a lot of it's cultivatable. All right. Polygamy is just a term saying there's a multiple marriage. It's not identifying which one, but it's just that. All right, let's get to the 3 family forms. Family is a social economic unit. There's reciprocity. There's typically parents and children involved in a family. There's 3 forms that we talk about in this class. There's more forms, but we talk about the 3 most common. One is matrifocal. How many of you are in a matrifocal family? That is a single mother raising her children. It's called matrifocal. Nuclear is a standardized family, which is mom, dad, siblings. You might have a dog, right, or a cat in there. So it's a nuclear family, mom, dad, siblings. An extended family is a nuclear family, but then you bring in like a grandparent, you bring in an aunt, you might bring in a cousin. Extended family isn't where you go away to college and you come back. No. It would be you go away to college, you bring a wife, a husband, and kids, and then it becomes extended. Extended family is a nuclear family, and then you add other relatives. This is actually an increasing form of family even in the United States. It increases for maybe financial reasons. Many of you might be living in an extended family now because you're sharing resources. Maybe grandparents moved in to do childcare and then they have room and board. Maybe just a bunch of you come together to help pay all the bills. Sometimes it's just cultural where you bring in your parents because maybe, or your parents brought a relative in to teach them the cultural language. There's a lot of reasons why extended families are on the increase. Well, I hope you enjoyed this chapter on marriage and the family. Have a good day. Bye.